Good morning and welcome to your perfect day starter. We're live for you in Lagos, Nigeria's commercial capital. I'm Kayode Okikelu.
And I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. Welcome. How was your weekend? It's a brand new week, 12th day, right? I just like to count. It's just my habit. I'm not a numerologist, but I like to count. Just to be conscious, because before you realize what's going on, 2024 will be over. And so I try to be that guy that helps you remember how you spend your every day. So I remind myself as well. So, yeah.
That's good, really. It's important to keep tabs. And I know that this weekend was quite eventful, or not, for a lot of people.
A lot of people. And for me, of course, the Olympics, high on my mind.
Yeah, let's have it, Jeff. I was going there, but let's have it. Let's have it.
I watched the closing ceremony. It was just beautiful. Yeah. You know, I posted on the platform, I said that. Like, there's a sprinkle of African, I don't want to complete it. But it's okay. But what I enjoyed the most about the Olympics, besides the closing ceremony and Tom Cruise coming at that stadium and taking the flag all the way from the City of Light to the City of Light to the City of Angels, which is Los Angeles. The world will be converging on Los Angeles in about 4 years, over 200 countries, and 10,000 athletes were there in Paris. But I've always talked about people going to the Olympics and coming last, but there was a symbolic last position for the women's marathon from a lady from Bhutan. She was literally almost giving up, literally walking down the last mile of that particular marathon, because it was 42 kilometers. Even Kipchoge, who is perhaps the biggest record holder in history, if you don't mind, the sports people will be able to tell me that, had to, DNF, they did not finish, they call it, at 30 kilometers, but this woman kept going, and it was like, look, this last position felt like the first position because the crowd was supporting her, and that human tenacity, that not forgive. I heard a commentator saying, look, something like that happened in 1968 to an African, and his was literally bleeding, and they bandaged him, and they were telling him, you must not complete this, and all of that. I said, no, my country did not send me 700 kilometers to the Olympics to start. They sent me to finish. So for some of those races, it's about finishing, and it's so beautiful to be able to start something and finish. That was one of my biggest lessons for this Olympics.
And it was great to see Ethiopia's Temira Tola really finishing. And this is what I think about life, something I really hold on to. You may not love sports. Okay, let me take that again. You may not love football. I know a lot of people might not love football for obvious reasons, but you have to pick a sport because you can learn so much from sports. You can see life as a marathon itself. Never give up, really, just like the athlete. Kipchoge, by the way, yes, he's actually the greatest marathoner at this point.
11 times major.
Exactly, so he deserves that. He had to take a taxi to the finish line. So don't be fazed. You may have all of the biggest ahead of you, around you, but just stay focused. Run your race. That is all that matters, that you finish that race and never give up. So that is our motivation for you this morning. Monday sometimes means motivation. Some other times it means business. But today we're mixing all of that together. So in this marathon called life, never give up.
It was so beautiful to see Tola mount that podium. It was just incredible. When you had other big names like Bekele, it literally came on board like 2 weeks before as an alternate. And then eventually won. And I must give a shout out to Hassan, who represented Netherlands for the ladies as well.
I see what you're doing, Jeffrey. You are avoiding the elephant in the room. You're going round and round and round and round and
round. I must also give it up to, for me, one of my favorite guys in this game, the 200 meters, Tebogo from Botswana.
You're still going round, Jeffrey. When are we going to get to that point?
Look, if I start talking about Nigeria, we have a time to talk about it. So I'm avoiding it. I'm saving it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'm saving it. Because I saw the long statement by the Minister of Sports, and I was just, okay, we'll get to that conversation. We'll get to that conversation.
I'm chuckling
but for the record, since you said I should talk about it.
No, I said you're moving. You don't have to talk about it. There's a whole segment for that on the show this morning. But clearly, we have to definitely delve into it. A lot of people made jokes, and that's Nigeria for you. You see disappointment, you go through it, and you come out smiling, you come out making a joke. Whether or not it's good for us is another thing entirely. So people said, you saw the athletes with their medals and the rest, and then you saw our people with the water. and stuff like that. So a lot of people just took the comic route to handling the huge disappointment from the Olympics. So it's a big one on the show this morning, Jeffrey. I know that you're waiting for that. To calculate the billions.
I can't wait. No,
Calculate
I
the
have
billions
the numbers in both naira
and then break it down per athlete. We had 88, I think, at the Olympics. Yeah. And then break it down to the results.
Yes.
That is something we'll definitely do for you on the show this
morning. So
morning.
in about 4 Olympics, we've come back with 3 medals, 2 bronze, 1 silver.
Goodness me. What do we have for you on the show this Monday morning? Well, today is a very special day, ladies and gentlemen, and we're starting off the week with a bang, as the world today celebrates the power of youth and digital innovation on International Youth Day 2024. Well, on the show this morning, we're going to discover, troubleshoot how young minds are harnessing technology to create solutions for Nigerians' most pressing challenges, from governance to the economy, insecurity, poverty alleviation, even creating jobs, and so much more. So join us on this conversation, whether you're young by age, Jeffrey, or you're young at heart.
All is welcome. All of you are welcome. Age or heart, you are a guest on the show. But that's not all. Like I just said, the big elephant. This elephant has elephantiasis, literally. From Paris Olympics have come and gone. But the question lingers. What happened to our Olympic dreams? Should heads roll? Join us as we dissect Team Nigeria's performance and, more importantly, map out a winning strategy for the next big stage. Can we turn disappointment into determination with that outing? We'll find out right here on the show with our guest.
So major points to be made on that one. And this is something you do not want to miss, because it's not just about sports. It's about governance. It's about management. It's about the core of our nation. I mean, look at Toby Amushan, all of that weight on her shoulders. So this is something you want to be a part of. And how can you be a part of it? Well, we're taking your comments, your questions, and all of your contributions in just about a couple of minutes. Hashtag CTV Morning Brief. That's how you can be a part of the show, or just head to WhatsApp right away and drop in your comments. There you have it, the golden number. Never mind that it's in black. It's a golden number nonetheless. That's a WhatsApp number with which you can send us messages and videos right here on the Morning Brief. If you have something interesting happening around you and you want us to know, hey, send it our way.
So that's how you will communicate with us. I was so sad when I saw that 100 meters with that Toby Amushan in lane 1. Well, let's skip it, Kari.
We collectively as Nigerians need some sort of therapy. Yeah. We need some sort of intervention.
And people from Nigerian origin were winning medals on behalf of other countries.
Not 1, not 2, not 3, not... Come on. You just kept seeing those names. They're like, this is definitely Nigerian. In fact, there's a lady who races for Bahrain. Bahrain lady, she has a different name. She still maintains a Nigerian name, but for the competition, she has a different name. Yeah. But I'm like, this lady is Nigerian, because you can tell.
What's that country from? What's that lady from? Is it Yemisi Adeleke? One of those, I've forgotten.
Right.
There's this lady.
For the UK or the US?
I forgot the country, but Europe. Yeah. I know it's from Europe.
Right.
She won a gold medal. I'm sure my producer will get me that name.
So those are things we'll, of course, talk about on the show. But let's do this together. Let's start your day on the right note by giving you all of the information you need. They say information is power. And we're back with the top stories in just a few seconds. Stay with us right here. It's the Morning Brief. Our top stories at this hour, we begin with security. Suspected terrorists have reportedly killed 4 personnel of the Nigerian army in the Gudu local government area of Sokoto State. Sources in the border town of Bale, the headquarters of Gudu local government area, said the assailants laid an ambush against the army personnel and opened fire on their moving vehicle. They said 4 personnel died instantly, while 7 others sustained different degrees of injuries and are receiving treatment in an undisclosed hospital. All efforts to get the security agencies to confirm the report has been unsuccessful, as at press time, as both the Nigeria Police Force and the army authorities in Sokoto are yet to comment on the attack. and suspected armed bandits have invaded Lambara and Tunga local, that's villages rather, in Shagari local government area, displacing over 300 households and rustling livestock. Members of the communities attacked have all relocated to Shagari town, headquarters of Shagari local government area, taking refuge at an Islamic school. The member representing Yabo and Shagari Federal Constituency, Yusuf Yabo, has alongside official of the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, visited the victims in their temporary displacement or displaced persons camp for an on-the-spot assessment.
Governments, some bandit tree came to some villages and attacked, which we come to figure out that they went and robbed about 3,000 cows. So those people of those villages, they decided to leave their villages and come back to Shagari main town, where they think or they feel they are safe. So that is why we went and visit them. And I also informed the NEMA, that is the Management Disaster Agency, for them to go and see by themselves, and that is the reason why we went there. Sokoto South Senatorial District is a very safe place, so we want to use maybe this medium to call on the security agencies to come and restore peace in Yabo, in Shagari local government, and those people that left their villages, left their houses, to come and in Shagari local government to please make sure that restore peace for them to go back to their villages.
Here together today to see for ourselves what had happened, and through the information and the data gathered, we are able to know that it was a banditry attack, and it displaces many people who has taken refuge in this local government secretariat. And it affected a lot of people. About more than 3,000 cattle and camels, sheep and goats were confiscated. Motorcycles too, ponds, and the bogle shops and houses. So like I said earlier, NEMA is not a compensation agency, but NEMA would provide certain relief items that would mitigate the impact of the disaster on the affected person.
Away from Sokoto State, as part of efforts to curtail the activities of oil thieves and economic saboteurs in their legal act of busting oil pipelines and siphoning crude oil and its product, the Nigerian Air Force has announced the destruction of 13 illegal refining sites and 10 overhead tanks. In a statement, the Director of Public Relations and Information of the Air Force, Air Vice Marshal Edward Gapquet, said operations conducted along the Imo River near Obuzo and Okoloma, several active illegal refining sites were discovered to be taken advantage of the difficult terrain to perpetrate their illegalities. And repentant terrorists have been recounting their experiences as insurgents and the intermittent desire to return to the bush owing to the level of indoctrination they received as Boko Haram members. Some of the women spoke at the de-radicalization program organized by Al-Amin Foundation for Peace and Development in collaboration with the state government in Maiduguri, the Borno state capital. So far, 90 women and minors have been reintegrated, while several others are undergoing rehabilitation and a radicalization process, after which they will be reintegrated to the society.
About 200,000 Boko Haram insurgents, including fighters, family members, and minors, have so far surrendered to the government since July 2021. This follows the death and split of the old group into ISWAP and Boko Haram and other smaller groups in the Sambisa, Mandara Mountains and the Lake Chad region.
Yeah, it should be.
Some of the former insurgents surrendered willingly to the troops of the Nigerian army. Others were rescued during military operations, while some escaped the camps. In response to the mass surrender, government initiated a program to ensure smooth reintegration of the former insurgents back to the society. This idea birthed what is known as the Borno Model Reintegration. The Special Advisor on Security to the Governor, who doubles as the Executive Secretary Borno Security Task Force, and the Commissioner for Women Affairs and Social Development speak on the rehabilitation and reintegration program of the government.
What we have that were integrated to the community are low risk and minor. You need to see some of these boys. Some of them were 6 years, 7 years when they were conscripted. And they are the ones that were actually reintegrated back to community. But the fighters are still with us. The fighter. And one interesting thing about this issue is that over 95% of the die-hard Boko Haram were killed as a result of military action and also infighting among themselves.
At the occasion of the reintegration of a batch of 30 women who have undergone de-radicalization processes by Alamein Foundation for Peace and Development in Maiduguri, were well-wishers from representatives of security agencies, civil society groups, religious organizations, and stakeholders. 2 women, wives of late fighters of Shekau, speak on their experiences.
The repentance that are being celebrated is not genuine. Some of them had to surrender because it was the only option left. They still hold dear to their belief. Community people were forced to accept them, and they did it.
Yara kanana yanda ake hukunci da sauransu babu wanda bata sani. Daji kafin shi ya shiga suka kira shi a lokacin ne na shiga daji.
I was living in Kano while my husband was a teacher under Muhammad Yusuf, the founder of Boko Haram. We had 3 children. Then his colleague and him ran to the bush when the search for them became intense by civilian joint task force. It was the death and subsequent split of the Boko Haram that led to the in-house fighting that made me escape.
So far, 90 women and minors have been reintegrated by the foundation, while several others are undergoing rehabilitation and de-radicalization process, after which they will be reintegrated into the society.
Well, let's now bring you the aftermath of the End Bad Governance protests, as some of the protesters have been assured that the demands will be carefully considered at the state level, while issues concerning the federal government will be relayed to the appropriate authority for consideration. Addressing the Coalition for Just End Bad Governance 2024 protest members at the Government House during the town hall meeting in Jos, Governor Caleb Mutfwang commended the peaceful manner the protesters went about their lawful activities during the protest. The governor observed that the immediate past government policies and mismanagement are major reasons for the present hardship being experienced by Nigerians. To some politics now. The national leadership of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, says the exit of some of its prominent members in Edo State will not affect its fortunes in the forthcoming governorship election in September. The National Publicity Secretary of the PDP, Mr. Debo Olugbagba, stated this at a news conference in Abuja, maintaining that the PDP remains unshakable owing to the pedigree of its governorship candidate in the election. And now to some heartwarming news. A 27-year-old IDP, Amon Sishaku, who got a first-class degree in chemical engineering and an overall best graduating student at the Edo State University, Uzerue, last year, has been offered a scholarship at the Illinois University, Chicago, California, United States, to run a PhD program in chemical engineering at the school. In an interview with Channels Television, he expresses his joy and also appreciates everyone that has helped him thus far. The coordinator of the camp is very elated by the development, insisting that even though there's a great deal of challenges at the camp, this is good news, definitely. And the management of the National Youth Service Corps, the NYSC, has denounced what it describes as a misleading information circulating in the media regarding payment of 70,000 naira minimum wage to Corps members and the directive to upgrade their accounts. A statement signed by the Director of Information and Public Relations of the Corps, Mr. Eddie Megwa, says Corps members, parents, and members of the public should note that no directive has been received from the relevant sector of government responsible for wage matters, so it is therefore impossible for the NYSC to issue any information on such. The The statement explains that core members already know the approved channel and mode of communication in the scheme and shall therefore ignore the directive accordingly. Business news now. The Nigeria Deposit Insurance Corporation NDIC says 82.36% of the total insured depositors of the defunct Heritage Bank have been reimbursed since the revocation of the bank's license by the Central Bank of Nigeria on June the 3rd. In a statement, spokesman for the appointed liquidator NDIC, Bashir Nuhu, said the remaining 17.64% of the insured deposits yet to be paid were largely depositors whose accounts have post-no debits PND instructions or have no bank verification numbers. Mr. Nuhu said the NDIC began the payment of the insured deposits of 5 million naira maximum per depositor within a record time of 4 days of the bank's closure, using the BVN as a unique identifier to locate depositors' alternate accounts in other banks. And outside the country, Ukrainian troops have advanced up to 30 kilometers inside Russia in what has become the deepest and most significant incursion since Moscow began its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. Russia's defense ministry said its forces had engaged Ukrainian troops near the villages of Topino and Obsky Kolodez as the offensive in Kursk region entered a 6th day. A foreign ministry spokesperson, Maria Zakharova, assured Kiev of intimidating the peaceful population of Russia. President Volodymyr Zelensky, who directly acknowledged the attack for the first time in an address, said 2,000 cross-border attacks had been launched by Russia's troops from Kursk this summer. And on to sports news. The Minister of Sports Development, Mr. John Enna, has issued an apology to Nigerians over the poor outing of the Nigerian team at the just concluded 2024 Olympics game in Paris. President Bola Tinubu had approved 12 billion naira for the country's outing at the Olympics and Paralympics. 9 billion was earmarked for the former. This Olympics, while 3 billion was budgeted for the Paralympics. Well, despite the funding, Nigeria had ended the game without a medal. In the words of the minister, the Olympic Games Paris 2024 have ended, and I accept that our performance should have been a lot better. It fell short of our objectives, expectations, and hopes of Nigerians. I must apologize to our compatriots and reflect on what went wrong while looking forward to the Paralympic Games Paris 2024 from August the 28th to September the 8th. But there's maybe something to hold on to, at least not a medal, though. And that's D Tigres's Rena Wakama, who won the best coach at the women's basketball event in just concluded 2024 Paris Olympic Games. Wakama is also the first Nigerian national female basketball team coach to win the women's AfroBasket title since it began in 1966. She took the Nigerian female team to the quarterfinals of the tournament for the first time in history for any African team. The feat made them the first ever African team, men or women, actually, to play at that stage of the event. So those are the top stories at this hour. Lots to say, definitely, about the Olympics, as well as other major stories making the rounds. And Jeffrey joins me as we walk through the online space to see what you are talking about. Jeffrey.
Exactly. They're saying lots of things, from sports,
let's have it,
politics, all of that. But let's get started with things that are happening here before we get to let's get started before we get to Paris and all of that. So let's start with former President Olusegun Obasanjo talking about the issue. Okay, this is the context. Some lawmakers had visited him, and before long, they gave their remarks, and in response, the former president said a lot of things, you know, from the NNPCL to the economy, to some people that are in government now that should have been in jail, and it was just an explosive conversation. If you haven't seen it, go to YouTube and check it out on our platform. So these are the response. But he talked about the fact that we are sitting on a keg of gunpowder. That's coming from former President Olusegun Obasanjo, one of the statements accredited to him. Tokwe Peter says, we have been sitting on this gunpowder, tie, but yet it has not exploded.
Jeffrey, you have to take that again.
Is it? Tay.
That's the language.
Oh, whose language is it, Yoruba?
No, that's, I think, Pidgin.
Oh, Tay. Oh, Tay. Oh, he's tight. Oh, boy. It's hard to spell Tay. Okay, I take that again.
There you
Tay.
There you go. So I think it's something we must really reiterate. It's something we've said a lot. I mean, look at what played out during the End Bad Governance protest. See the army of young Nigerians. You just wonder, where are they from? How did they
Where are they coming from?
Exactly. And where will they go after this? That's even the question that bugs me the most. Right after that, where have they gone to?
Because that doesn't mean they are no longer angry.
Exactly. So, big issue, really. But the next user has this to say about the former president's comment, and that's Kazim Ayadele saying, even though former President Obasanjo is not our best, but in terms of good governance, rather, if we have been having someone like him, we might have gone far. Okay. Best bet, rather, in terms of good governance. So that's what this user thinks about that.
All right, Ifile Omone for you says, I know Baba regrets his actions and inactions of the past now. You got so lucky that information was not so much on our fingers then as now. However, it's good to know that it's never too late to right maybe the wrong, I guess. Wishing you the very best if this is for real.
I think a lot of people are referring to the third term agenda, which was a major blight on the administration of former President Olusegun Obasanjo. That has been a major issue. In fact, political opponents still use it against him. So, well, I'm not I'm not seeking a third term anyway, like you. So that's what a lot of people are referring to. Okoyemi is next, saying if our lawmakers are really doing the right thing, then Nigeria will become better. Yes, absolutely. Place the responsibility at the table of lawmakers, but also shared across board. So other people do not hide behind lawmakers, because a lot of people tend to do that all across board.
Well, even fired at lawmakers, he said they are the ones fixing their salaries.
There you go.
And their entitlements and all of that. But the
Senate released a statement.
Yes. Yeah. Senate has the spokesperson Yemi Adaramodu has released a statement that that is not true and all of that. So back and forth. But let's talk about that incident that occurred on the Kano-Maiduguri highway. Flood literally, I wish you can have the video so you can see what we're talking about, literally cut off the expressway, and people were on both ends of the expressway, just like Lagos-Ibadan expressway being divided around Kara. For those of us who, yes, this is the video, check it out. So imagine you're coming from there or you're going to there. I hope you understand my drift. You're cut off. So what options are left for these people? So this is the aerial shot. One car already in this, is it flood water, we'll call it now, not quite clean. It's just a total mess.
This is not VFX, by the way. This is not effect. This is not CGI. This is real. This happened for real. And first of all, the people standing on the edges,
I'm even worried.
I'm a bit concerned for them.
Those people standing here. What
you
are you
don't know what
doing
might
here?
happen in this area. It's very
because if you look at the current of the water. It's really high.
It's still strong.
I look at people literally on that edge.
Just right in the edge.
What are you doing?
Disaster response, particularly for people, is a big issue. Yes, you want to do videos, but you have to stay safe, particularly because there's now a lot of load right there on the road. You just
because as they're standing, I can even see this policeman and all of that standing at that edge. Don't go from being a content creator to become a content yourself.
Or yourself, as the case may be.
It's not right. But let's take a look at what you are saying. Amorab says, is that time of the year again? Flood season is in northern Nigeria. We express our concerns, pray and demand action only to be met with superficial responses. But as the dry season sets in, the issue is forgotten, leaving us to face the same struggles again next year.
The consequences, and that's what this next user talks about. D_Temio says, where is the drainage? Where is the contractor? The public officers who awarded and monitored the project. They should be invited for an investigation and afterwards, possible prosecution.
Oh boy, so where's the next one? Prince Anekwe says, highway roads that were constructed without proper erosion canals and drainages alongside it. Only in Nigeria, iron rods are not used with cement to construct major highways. I'm sure the Minister of Works, Senator Dave Umahi, will be able to respond to all of this.
Well, Mike Terongwa is next, saying failure to address climate change effectively will result in escalating economic costs, affecting nearly every sector. So this is also another angle. There's the the project, the issues with the infrastructure itself, but there is also what you cannot exactly control, where you can contribute to mitigate the effect of climate change, or at least the speed. So that's also another angle we need to talk about.
Exactly. But Bueze says, this is what you get when you do a substandard road construction. The construction company should be held responsible for this. North is not known for erosion. So how can this happen in Federal Road? Something fishy went on this job. Okay. Okay, well, let's move on to the next one, Kyle.
Absolutely. And this has been a back and forth between the Kano State government and the former governor.
A legalese brickbat.
Exactly, of Kano State. And the latest twist to this, probe of corruption or possible corruption is the fact that the Kano government has filed fresh charge against former Governor Ganduje and 3 others. It's in the case of alleged 57 billion naira fraud. First user, Mother Earth, says, good move. But to what end? It always ends with stories. No one will be punished. Money will never be recovered. If ever it is recovered, it will be relooted. So that's what the first user has to say about this.
And this is, I'm not sure of the name now. All this going on in Kano, political tussle, corrupt politicians who unleash mayhem on our people and destroy our society because of their political and personal gains.
There you have it. So we'll wait to see what plays out.
But that should be from Miles Smokey with loads of number.
Exactly. So we'll see what plays out with all of that, but not to forget that there's a big issue of governance as well. So by all means, prosecute corruption or alleged corruption and let people see the results, not just for pages of the newspaper. Let's keep now and move on to yet another issue that has been trending, and this of course concerns infrastructure as well. So what you saw earlier, you can tie it back to this, but it's a different angle. As the federal government, we hear, has terminated the contract for Section 1 of a Kano Maiduguri Road project awarded to Dantata and Sao Limited in 2007 due to prolonged delays. So when you ask, where's the Minister of Works, perhaps this is what he's been busy doing. So the first user, Timothy Oduola, says a project awarded 17 years ago is still under construction. There you have it. Wow. I can only imagine the pain and suffering of residents and commuters on that route. Well, you can say that again.
All right. Muma J says 17 years after and they are not done with the project yet. No questions asked till now. Welcome to the country.
There you have it.
But this is not how we run our country. This is a bad example of how we run the country.
So take a look at how this user couches it. Bimbo Shanubi says, Jeffrey, the contract was awarded when I was in JSS 3/SS1. And now I have an MSc, yet the road is yet to be fully fixed. So when you put it in that context, it just shows you that lots have happened. I mean, just imagine the effect of that. And imagine how much you'll now be rewarded, Jeffrey.
Because they have to variate it. And the money involved with Nigerian construction, we don't want to go there. All right, so just imagine, okay, not that. Jade says, just imagine since 2007, that's when Olusegun Obasanjo left government, former president. What were past government looking at that they didn't terminate the contract before this present government had the balls to do it?
There you have it.
At least they've done it.
So let's see how that plays out yet again. But the big story, of course, the Olympics. You know, one moment we're like, we're not going to pay attention to sports. We have bigger fish to fry. But then you can't help it. Once you see the Nigerian flag anywhere, Jeffrey, you cannot help it. You just have to.
Your patriotism
just comes up. And then everybody just got invested in Olympics all of a sudden and said, you know what, we need to get something, at least 3 medals. I mean, we had 3 people in the long jump finals. That didn't happen. We said, okay, Toby Amushon will be it. But of course, you know how that story ended. So Chinwe Obuaku has the first one because Nigeria finished without a medal at the Paris Olympics. Says, watching Nigeria's Olympic loss was tough, especially for my patriotic 5-year-old daughter. She was so saddened by it that she now wants to become an athlete. Let's inspire the next generation to reach for the stars. And I really love that response. I love this.
Exactly. So if you're the 5-year-old watching, don't worry. You're the one that will give us the gold. So be inspired by that failure.
You have to start practicing
and start practicing now.
Yeah.
All right, Mudiaga 247 says, despite not winning any medal, I'm proud with the athletes who qualified to represent our great country, Nigeria, we will never forget. Olympics is more than just a medal.
Absolutely. So on to the next one now. That's, of course, the minister speaking about, apologizing to Nigerians, Jeffrey, that our performance should have been a lot better. But you know what, we're going to hold on to that one because it's a major segment on the show.
Yep.
So if you've got comments, if you've got, I don't know, suggestions, because I think this is the time we need it. Hold them, send them to CTV, #CTV Morning Brief, or to our WhatsApp number. We'll be taking them. But we'll take a moment now. And when we return, we're starting off with the big celebration for today. International Youth Day.
August the 12th.
Whether you're young by age or at heart, this segment is for you, particularly how young people are to transform our nation, Nigeria. That's the moment. Stay with us.
Country are the formidable young people you can see in every part of the world. We are active. We have the can-do spirit. We are brilliant. We are focused. But are we channeling our energy on solving the solutions we should? That's the question.
The National Assembly is committed to enhancing relevant laws that will make Nigeria conducive for our youth, and to remain here to contribute to national development. I assure you that both the legislature and the executive arm of government are working together to create opportunities for our teeming youth to reach the zenith of their potentials in life.
Welcome back. It's August the 12th, International Youth Day, and this year the focus is on Click to Progress, youth digital pathways for sustainable development. And the Nigerian population is replaced with loads of youths. In fact, the young people comprise the majority of the population. But what are we doing with this energy, this useful strength? That is going to be our focus today on the program, especially with the level of innovation around the world. We've been joined in the program by literally a team of gentlemen and ladies. So let's begin to bring them in. From our booth, via Zoom, we have Nana Kazaure. She's an entrepreneur and media consultant and former spokesperson, Obidati Presidential Campaign Council. We also have joining us via Zoom, legal practitioner and 2019 presidential candidate of the defunct National Interest Party, Eunice Atwejide. We also have joining us from our Abuja studio, Mr. Abu Andrew, chairman of the Progressive Forum and member of the All Progressives Congress, as well as country director, Africa Youth Leadership Improvement and Crime Prevention Awareness, Andrew Enatomen. Is also a member, Nigerian Civil Society Organization, and member of the People's Democratic Party. Gentlemen and ladies, thank you so much for coming on the program. So, let's begin with our guests on Zoom. Joining us, Nana Kazaure. Let me start with you on this particular one. Of course, you work with a lot of young people, and we know the strength of young people in the country. But one of the challenges we've always seen across board is the fact that there's always been a challenge in transforming this energy and this youthfulness and this potential to something really resourceful at the level and skill that we expect it to be. So we find a country where the level of youth inclusion in political spaces is improving, but it's not there. In terms of technology, that's where we're seeing a lot of moves. However, it looks like young people are consuming more than creating. So I need you to speak to that first before we get to the other core issues on the program.
Good morning, everybody. To all of you in the studio. Hi, Eunice. Good morning, Nigerians. It's great to be part of this conversation. I don't know how youthful I am, but hey, if you people have put me on the spot to speak about the youth, I'll do my best.
At heart and age, that's what we said.
I'll do my very best. Nigerian youth all over the world I must say, despite a lot of challenges, are one of the most resilient people. They're brilliant. They have amazing ideas. And one thing that I particularly admire about them is their can-do spirit. They don't see any setback. They want to try it. They want to go in. They want to do well. They want to make money while doing it. So we must always, always, always applaud the Nigerian youth. Everywhere they go in the world, they excel. And that's part of the Nigerian spirit. But then when we now bring it to Nigeria, we haven't particularly harnessed all that our youth can do for us in the sector of, in entertainment. I will say that they've been doing quite well in the music industry, in sports. It's a bittersweet feeling, especially just after the Olympics and how we performed. Because when I say bittersweet, we can see young Nigerians. We are celebrating young Nigerians, winning medals for other countries, and the same couldn't happen for us. We see a youth, it was good to see that we have the Tigers, so we can see growth, better participation. Our basketball team, we had a swimmer in the Olympics. We also had, the lady cyclist, but then she had to borrow a bicycle from Germany. Those kind of things do not endear the youth to want to serve in Nigeria. That's why a lot of them are now looking, let's japa, let's go to another part of the world where the system works and the system will help us do well. Right. That's, yes?
Yeah, you can land on your thoughts. You can just land on your thoughts, please.
Yes, there's a lot that has to be done. They have a lot of ideas. They have brilliant ideas. Some of them want right now to go into agriculture. If you sit down with them, they want to start, but then the government needs to support them. It's not just about bags of fertilizer. Can we begin to see mechanized farming? When you enter all these transport companies, I don't know if it's okay to mention the names of, it's a lot of youth. A lot of them are highly educated. Many of them have their degrees, but then they can't be gainfully employed. Then unfortunately, another thing that we've seen over the years is the ease of doing business in Nigeria. Interest rates are sky high, from 30 to 35%. So we need to encourage our youth more. There needs to be better government participation and engagement, because our youth are here and they're the future.
All right, let me bring it to you, Eunice Atwejide, on this particular one, because we're going to compartmentalize this conversation across sectors as much as time will allow us. But we've seen that there's a space that has not been rigged against the youth, so they've taken over, which Nana mentioned, which has to do with entertainment. But in the political space, the young people are struggling. But before we come to that political conversation, she'd mentioned something about the Japa syndrome. Youth are the vanguard of this because they are discontented. Sometimes their dreams are not coming true, but some have chosen to stay to make the most out of it. How do we reverse that trend from where you sit and to encourage young people to still believe in the country, even though it's perceived as not working?
For me, it comes to governance issues like my sister Nana alluded to. We don't have a system that allows the young Nigerians to thrive. And it is almost impossible to get people to stop wanting to japa without, first of all, organizing ourselves so that our polity works and allows the young Nigerians the opportunities they need to thrive. I believe that the government needs to begin to look at ways to directly make lives livable for the young Nigerians, not the so-called increasing funds that are given to governors or local government areas, but actually looking for ways to implement strategies that would significantly educate and employ young Nigerians. Those opportunities are not going to come because the federal government is putting more money into some state governments or local government areas. It's more about implementing policies and opening the space, both in terms of allowing more money to come into the hands of young Nigerians, reducing the interest rates, not this funny education loans we've seen that the criteria to even get them is almost impossible. Like, it's almost like we just wanted to entertain ourselves and bring something called education loan, but really it's not something that is going to get into the hands of the young Nigerians or make their lives even remotely better. So for me, in order to stop this jackpot syndrome and increase the opportunities for even those of them who have already jackpot to begin to come back home, we need to begin now to create a system that actually shows that we are truly now invested in making the lives of young Nigerians generally, a lot more livable. I don't think we're going to reverse the jackpot syndrome by keep the talk we are doing. It's more about implementing ideas and policies that will allow them to see that truly the opportunities are now there and they can access them. But even those at home, if we start with those at home, we begin to see that the education system is better, opportunities are there for them to work and earn good living. Not that we're saying we're increasing minimum wage to 70,000, but then a bag of rice is still 90,000 or a liter of fuel is still 1,200. It doesn't really add up. So even if we make the monthly income 500,000, if it still doesn't add up, we are still not getting it right. So we have to actually begin now to organize ourselves and look for ways to develop strategies to allow young Nigerians to begin to thrive in the country. And then, all things being equal, the ones who have gone will realize that there's nothing for them out there and come back home. Because at the end of the day, there's no place like home. No matter where it is you are, as long as you're a Nigerian and the Nigerian blood is running in you, you will always know that the best place to be is Nigeria. So whatever you're doing out there, you will only be doing it for that day finally when I can go home. And once our country and our leaders understand that and begin to work for the benefit of the young people and to make life livable for them, most people will come back home. Thank you.
I just want to know for you, have you, just before I go to Mr. Andrew Abu, have you made that decision to stay back home? Because I know you've had stints outside the country. Are you at that point where you're like, okay, home is now the place? Or you're still looking for those policies that will make you return?
No, I've always been a home girl. The only difference for me is because I know how hard it is. I have 5 kids and I have a grandchild. I know how hard it is to provide the barest minimum for the family. I mean, I'm raising a lot of children in Nigeria. All my family depend on me. And I know how hard it is to actually do all that in Nigeria. So it was easier for me to dump my babies abroad so that there it's a lot easier and safer. I mean, I can focus on doing what I need to do for those ones in Nigeria with me, while I still, kind of rely on the system to look after the ones that are in the UK and the US or wherever else they are in the world. So for me, Nigeria will always be home. I've never really left Nigeria and I never will. There was always opportunities to even renounce citizenship for the other citizenship. I've never done it and I would never do it. So anything I cannot be on top of being Nigerian is not for me. So I still am very much in Nigeria, and I will always be, but because I also have my children and grandkids in Europe and America, I tend to, get out there. And of course, I have access to a lot of opportunities. Right. So I still use those opportunities to improve my situation so that when I come back to Nigeria, I'm not dependent on those in Nigeria to be able to do the things I need to do. You know how expensive it is to run for political office in Nigeria, and nobody sponsors you unless you're ready to pledge allegiance to somebody, which I am not really interested in doing because I would like to get into power being independent. So It's a longer haul journey for me and obviously a much more expensive journey for me. But I know I'll get there. It's just for me to keep what I'm doing going, getting the money from abroad, bringing it back.
It seems you're enjoying the best of both worlds on different levels for Nigeria and outside, even as a young person and as a grandma as well. You're just enjoying all of the best of both worlds. But let me take this to Mr. Abu Andrew, because you raised some points about this government making the lives of Nigerians a lot more livable. She's raised some very salient points. She talked about the minimum wage, for example, and the reality in the market of buying petrol and the rest. So the question has sort of asked itself, really, for the Tinubu government, would you say it has made life more livable for Nigerian youth, which of course make up a huge chunk of the population?
Yeah, thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigerians. First of all, I want to say Happy International Youth Day to everybody that still falls within that demography. You know, I listened carefully to my sister and my very good friend Eunice. You know, and I'm happy that, you know, we still have Nigerians with this kind of mindset. You know, and that is the spirit, you know, we need to imbibe as a people. You know, that wants a country, you know, that wants a country that we can, you know, call our own and, you know, live for. You know, so yeah, I listen to a lot of people speak about the things that, the challenges we face as a people, not even just as youth. You know, a lot of times people just talk about the problems and we hardly speak about solutions or how, you know, we can add our voice or lend our voice to, you know, solving the problems that is bedeviling the average Nigerian, you know, on the street. Yes, I know that we have, you know, made commitments to a lot of things that we expect or that we said we're going to do as a party and as a government, you know. But you see, at the end of the day, regardless of what we would have promised and the things that we would have said we are going to do, it still comes down to the fact that the government cannot do this alone. The people and the government partnering, you know, can always foster a good cause, you know, for the generality of Nigerians. So yes, I would be lying if I say there are no challenges or people are not experiencing difficulties at the moment, you know. But you see, it is a process. And I mean, if I even say that, I'll be speaking against what the president has alluded to. You know, the president have said it time and time again within the last 1 year that he feels the pains of Nigerians. He knows that there are challenges. Unfortunately, he wishes, or he would have wished that there were other ways to go around this, you know. And I've not come here to speak about how previous governments have not, you know, solved the problems that have been on ground, you know, from time past. You know, I am here to speak on how well and how best we can, you know, make this country work for everybody. Right. You know, because at the end of the day, you know, because at the end of the day...
Yeah, you can land on your thought, please. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, so because at the end of the day, Nigeria is the only country we all have, and we must ensure that this country works for everybody, you know. So I'm here to speak as a Nigerian, not just as a party man or a supporter of this administration, but to see how we can all partner together to put Nigeria where, you know, in its rightful place, so to speak.
All right. Let me take this to Mr. Enentomen. The essence of this conversation is to really track how far we've come as a country, particularly for the young generation. They keep saying the good old days. And for the majority of young Nigerians, they don't understand those good old days where, you know, parents would tell the younger ones that, oh, you should have seen us in school then. They were giving us meals. Our laundry was sorted by the school. We naturally get jobs, live in university, you get a vehicle, you get an apartment, you get allowances, and they tell you the exchange rate at that point, tell you how cheap it was to buy food. And you're telling the average young person right now, and they're like, why couldn't you preserve those good old days for us across board, from government particularly to other people who, of course, have the power? So the essence of this conversation is to also track the past 20 plus years of this country and see how we can ensure that the next 20 years will not be the same. So, Mr. Enentomen, when you hear the good old days, for example, what do you think is a disconnect that we're not able to replicate the good old days to become at least the experience now?
Thank you very much. I think today is International Youth Day, and we're celebrating the strength of the youth. We always call it the strength of the youth because we understand the potential that is imbibed in us, the young people. You know, the truth remains, there is no country that survives, there is no nation in this world that can excel without the strength of the young people, without the strength of the youth. But it's quite unfortunate that most of us feel so sad that we only hear of the good old days, but we don't enjoy, we've not experienced it, and there is no hope that we're going to experience the good old age. At times I begin to wonder that if these are demographic, these are generations experiencing what we're passing through right now, what's the fate of the upcoming generation? I used to pity for them because I don't even see anything good coming for them anymore. We are doing everything possible within our reach as young people to harness the potential within us. But it's quite unfortunate that even our elders, our fathers, our forefathers, our leaders that we're looking up to, that have enjoyed the good old days, they seem to intentionally disconnect us from the hope that we tend to look up to. So it's a sad development, it's a sad reality. I wish we don't even hear about the good old days because we read about it, we feel it, we know what they enjoy, they talked about it. Now you now begin to wonder, why can't we experience what they experience? If the system that created the good old age for them, can't they replicate that same system for us, this generation, to enjoy the good old age? Considering the fact that the world is fast changing. As we speak right now, even in our time as young people, we knew when Nigeria was among the fastest growing economy in Africa. But today we're not even among the 6. Niger is fast growing, almost at 12%. Senegal is fast growing. Djibouti is fast growing. Egypt is growing. Libya is growing. But Nigeria is nowhere to be found. So these are things that saddens our heart. Even when we were in secondary school in our university days, at least we felt a little bit of how good this country was. Look at the Yar'Adua days. We're kind of happy that good. Nigeria is getting better. Of course, transitioning into democratic regime from Obasanjo days, you know, we're trying to feel, okay, after leaving the military regime, we felt, okay, good. We begin to experience what pure democracy is all about. Obasanjo handing over to Yar'Adua, we're feeling that things will begin to get better. Jonathan came into the system of power, and of course, we were like, the hope was rising. But all of a sudden, a Buhari administration came on board, every hope got drained, going into this administration again. Of course, just like what my friend said, we wouldn't be blaming administration, things have come to stay, but what we can do is to see how we can make it get better. But what hurt us more as young people is that we watch our potential dies within us. I watch a lot of videos on the YouTube and so many other places. You see our young people dying in the Mediterranean Sea in search of greener pasture. You know, we have a lot of potentials buried and dying on the inside of us because we have government who lacks the vision to be able to see the giftings on the young people and take advantage of it. We have young people who are good in technology. We have the entrepreneurial young people who are self-motivated, who are good in entrepreneurship. We have young people who are tech savvy, who is maximizing these potentials of these young people. These are young generation, young Nigerians. They go abroad, other developed nations. They are taking advantage of our young people. How do we harness the strength of the young people and the government make use of them for the development of this country? These are things we should be looking about. Of course, we've already missed it from previous administrations and going into, we don't even know what's in for us in the future administration. But at that, where we are now, do we need to be looking at the good old days? Of course, we cannot reverse the clock of time, but we can at least take advantage of the present strength of the young generation. Nigeria youth constitute over 52%, 50-something% of the voting population. How do we maximize that strength? In the agricultural sector, in the oil and gas sector, in the sports sector, in the aviation sector, in the technology sector, every single sector. In the infrastructure, how do we maximize the strength of the youth? How do we click the dots together? There are ministries, there are agencies, there are parastatals that directly talks about youth involvement in government, the things that the youth should do. How do you mix the dot of all these agencies together? How do you develop young people across board? How do you bring them around table and bring out the potential, place them in different sectors, spread them across the stage, spread them across the group, so that they can bring in the real potential they have for the advantage of the country? So it saddens our heart that we watch our young people die away with the potential that is embedded on the inside of them. So the government have a lot of things to do so that we don't begin to regret that why didn't we come to this world on time? Because they enjoy it, they tell it to our face, but they are denying us the privilege of enjoying what they've enjoyed. These are the things we talked about. Now, fuck, we can't shift it into federal government, but even at the state level, if we miss it at the federal level, can't we get it right at the various state level, at the subnational? How do we harness the strength of quality people to begin to govern us? How do we bring young people on board to be involved in decision making, in political processes? How do we make the subnational level so effective that young people begin to be involved in governance? If government is so expensive, politics is so expensive, how the government deliberately ensure that at least you make young people fall in love with government, if possible through party politics? Make subnational level, give them privileges, give them the percentage of race. I think last administration talked about giving some certain percentage to young people. Of course, most political parties actually practicalize that in terms of cutting down the cost of buying for purchasing of forms so that young people can fully involve in government. So government needs to begin to see all these things and take advantage of it so that our young people don't begin to die with their potential, so that other international community don't begin to harvest our young people out of this country. We have a lot of potential natural resources buried in this country. We need the government to take advantage of it.
All right, let's take it to the ladies. Let me start with Nana. One of the things I want to find out from you is whether or not the Tinubu administration, for both of you ladies, if you can answer that, is prioritizing exactly what the young people want to see. Because the government has always said the young people are a priority. We were talking to the Minister of Youth the other day. We saw that the budget was barely over 200 billion naira. And we have some youth representation. The Minister of State for Youth, the Minister of Youth, Better Edu is now suspended, a couple of others, just a few of them. And then the issue of the NEL fund that has now been approved, and some students we understand are getting access to that fund. They have an exposure of over 35 billion. The Ministry of Communication, the minister also spoke about what he calls the 3MTT, that is the 3 million talent, something like that. He talked about raising those talents, about 3 million of them within a particular period. And there has been some disbursement, according to the government, or earmarks for SMEs. So these are some of the efforts of government at that level. But when you look at it, does it speak to the fact that young people are prioritizing, or the president is actually crossing the right T's or dotting the right I's?
Well, a lot of the time what you get to see when you speak with youth, and it's not a lack of, Nigeria does not lack policies or lack ideas for youth empowerment, youth development, and the list goes on and on. But the problem is, how come we never see the impact, immediate impact? We hear about it, we see it, but then there's a difference between what you say and what you do. Now, we must always understand that there's a disconnect between government and its youth. Because a lot of the time what you see is, in fact, just recently, the 10-day protest, you can see that there's an act of defiance. People, the youth are restive. The youth want answers. And after the president's speech, what do you see? They feel very let down. It did not alleviate their fears. It did not come, and so, no, if you asked me a very direct question, has the APC been able to harness, or no, I don't think they've been able to. They need to be more grassroots oriented. They need to think about what's happening at, governance also has to be local. And a lot of do the youth even trust the government? That's another thing. Has the government been able to say, have they been able to earn the trust of Nigerian youth? The word is there on the street. And the answer is no. The government isn't doing enough. I'm not saying they're not doing anything, but I do not think that they're doing enough. There's still a lot to be done.
Mrs. Eunice, let's come to you. The same question I did ask Nana on this one, whether government is really crossing the T's and dotting the I's, or there's something they are missing, because she's saying in the immediate term, nothing seemed to be happening. What I was trying to remember, I think it's 3 million technical talent of the Ministry of Communication. I want you to speak to that.
Yeah, thank you. To my mind, like my sister rightly pointed out, there is a very serious disconnect between this government and the Nigerian youth. And you can trace that back to how the government came to be in the first instance. It did not come to be by the votes and the trust and the confidence of the Nigerian youth placed on the particular leadership we have now. So it is very difficult for the Nigerian youth to all of a sudden begin to believe that these people who took power from us against our wishes are actually there for our interest. It's very difficult. And until this government begins to take steps to actually show that they have the best interest of the Nigerian youths at heart, they can get nowhere. The thing is, it's not about announcing policies, announcing measures. I tried to get these loans for some of my people in my constituency. It's impossible. Oh, your father has to be this. You must have a level this civil servant to get this. I'm like, oh my God, like nobody in my entire constituency. And I have 4 constituencies. I have in Lagos, I have in Enugu, I have in Abuja. Nobody could actually access any of these things. Yet, the announcement is out there that we have done something for the Nigerian youth. Okay, now we're talking about the 3 MTTs. And the next thing we heard, oh, they've burnt up the one we set up in Kano. Hey, that's an excuse. And that also fosters the lack of trust from the Nigerian youth to this government, because you're always quick to tell us how we have destroyed everything and prevented you from having impact, but you're never able to show us the impact you have. It doesn't matter how much you talk. Unless you start showing your workings, you're wasting your time with the Nigerian youth, because they are lots better than all the previous generations that had gone through this same system, because it repeats itself. Year after year, every 4-year quarter, it comes back. It's the same thing. But now this government is dealing with a set of people who are way more exposed, who are way, like everywhere you look, people are able to get on the internet, get news, get information, get education, even when they are not even going through school structures. They have information. So when you are talking, they're able to like look at what you're saying. No, this doesn't make sense. And because of that, they do not trust this government. And to get that trust, I think it's actually impossible, especially because of the way the government came into being in the first place. So for me, it's almost like a waiting game. Oh boy, let's just sit down and wait for them to finish. Highest 8 years, and then we can try again. So I think that is the mindset of most of the people in Nigeria right now, particularly young Nigerians. And the frustration level is getting to a point where this keg that has this gunpowder that has been sitting down, it may actually indeed blow up in our faces. It's been there from the 60s, it's still there now, and Nigerians are actually very resilient. The Nigerian youth is always ready to wait it out, maybe something different will happen. During the elections, after the election, post-elections, there was no riot, there was no protest, because everybody kept believing, okay, maybe the judiciary will save us this time. It didn't happen. Now they have come out to protest for the first 10 days. There's still a lot of us hoping that maybe something will happen. At least this is the first sign that, look, we are not taking this anymore. But actually nothing is happening. Even when you look at the speech that the president gave during the protest, you know that he's not paying attention. You know that he's not listening. You know that he's actually like he does not have any ideas. So it's actually a waiting game for most people. But I don't know if everybody can wait. For me, there's no trust in this system. There's no trust in this government. And the way they started off actually eroded any opportunity they could get for getting people to trust them. When you start out with buying private jets, building houses in billions of naira, buying yachts, allocating hundreds of millions to your National Assembly members and everything, then you are telling the people, we don't care about you, we care about us. So it's difficult to come back from that. Very difficult. I think it's actually impossible for this government to be able to convince the Nigerian youth that they have their interest at heart, because the first 1 year was wasted. It's difficult to come back from that. So I do not believe that they are dotting the T's, dotting the I's or crossing the T's, because they are telling us what they planned, but we are not seeing the impact of what they're doing.
Let me take this to Mr. Andrew now. Quite a number of issues raised. Mr. Andrew, just react to them, because I know there's a lot on the table right now. Mr. Abu Andrew.
Yeah, there's really a lot on my table. Nobody's going to fix this country for us. We're the ones to fix this country ourselves. And I don't want us to put ourselves in a place, pitch ourselves as Nigerians against the government. If the country works positively, it's going to work positively for all of us. If the country works negatively, it's going to work negatively for all of us. So you see, that partnership is very, very important. And I understand and I feel what everybody is saying. And of course, I will not start arguing or start saying that the government is doing their best, and for that reason, nobody should complain. There are issues, we all agree. Even the president acknowledges that. You know, how do we fix this issue is what we should be talking about, okay? Now, what do I think? I think there must be more engagement. The people must engage with the government at all tiers of government. You know, we must engage. We must be able to tell the government what we want and what we want them to do as a people. You know, because at the end of the day, if we say that we have lost faith in the government, or there is a huge disconnect between us and the government, what will it achieve at the end of the day? Yes, so I agree that the Nigerian youth is very resilient. The Nigerian people, not just the youth. I don't want us to even reduce this conversation to just the youth, you know, because it's hitting hard on everybody, okay? So the Nigerian people are very, very, very resilient people. And we know that the young people in Nigeria are people that are filled with a lot of potentials. You know, they've squeezed water out of stone in a lot of times, you know. And can this country work? I fall within the category of people that believe that this country can work. And the one way this country can work is for us as a people to agree and tell ourselves that, look, this country can work for the betterment of all of us. And it is the responsibility of us as citizens to ensure that this country can work. How do we ensure that the country can work? We must hold government accountable. Holding government accountable, is it by going on the street and protesting? No, I don't think so. Holding government accountable is to always call out government and sit down on a round table with government. Government is always ready to listen. Even this protest that just ended, or that we just had, government have reached out and called out to Nigerians to come, look, come, let's sit down and discuss. What can we do together? You know, until people start seeing that it goes beyond just criticizing and calling out the government, we must come out as a people to see where we can assist the government. You know, because at the end of the day, nobody is going to come from anywhere to come and fix this country for us except us as Nigerians. And that is why I've told myself that I will not come on air where I have other panels or panelists to start arguing with them or start countering what they have said. The situation is clear to everybody. There are issues, and we accept the fact that there are issues. Now, how do we solve this issue? And what are the solutions that we're putting on the table to solve these issues? For me, that is what I will expend my energy on. I will not come and start complaining about what the previous government did not get right, or what they got right, or what they should have done that they did not do. For me, what we need to sit down and be discussing and be talking about today as a people is, how do we go forward? And how do we make progress as a country? You know, that should be the main focus for every Nigerian as it stands today. Whether you think as an individual that the government came in legitimately or illegitimately, it is right now, it is immaterial at this critical point in time. We have a president in place, and the president must ensure that the life of every Nigerian is lived in the barest minimum of the good life that every Nigerian can afford to, you know, get. You know, and I don't think the president as an individual will be happy to see people suffer. There is nobody in this country that will be in the position of being a president or a governor or a local government chairman that would want to see the people suffer. Right, at the end of the day, that partnership must be done. All right. That is what I'm advocating for this morning. All right, your advocacy is noted. Just to also add that protest is granted and properly protected in the Constitution. And also criticism is also permitted in the Constitution. You know, the media has a role to hold the powerful to account. And in hold the powerful to account is not by clapping, it's to look at what they are not doing
I just need to posit all of that. But I'm sure that Mr. Andrew will have responses to some of the things you've said and what others have said. Mr. Andrew?
Yeah, thank you very much. I like my friend Andrew, my very good friend. Most times, you know, one thing about young people where we are different from the older generation, it's we speak truth to power irrespective of who's also involved. Like if you see me criticize my political party on air, most times you will like, how use this harsh on your political party? Because that's who I am. I'm an activist. I'm a social critic. So I should speak truth to power irrespective. Because if it's affecting the young people, if I am being hypocritical because I have political affiliation, because of emotional attachment, religious, cultural affiliation, it's totally affect me. It will affect the upcoming generation. So just like what my friend said, I think I want to put down some solutions. I hope the government can listen to some of this. So one, the government to invest in education and skill development is very important. We need to invest more in education of young people and skill development. How do you impact people? Because if you develop a child, you are developing a nation. If you give a skill acquisition to a young people, to a young person, you practically eradicate poverty from the generation of that young person. Now, two, create job opportunity and support entrepreneurship. You understand? It's very, very important that the government need to create job opportunity and support entrepreneurship. There are young people who are entrepreneurially sad. They are strong in terms of entrepreneurial wise. If you go to different markets in Abuja, in Nigeria, and across the state, you see a lot of young people doing something, hustling. Go to Lagos, you see young people who are very hardworking. You see one thing I always tell people, Nigerian government is so lucky that our citizens are not lazy. So why not take advantage of that strength, of the strength of those young people? Invest in them, because invest in their entrepreneurial skills. When you go to market, you see young people who are doing well in various businesses. Encourage them, give them soft loans without impact, 0% interest loan. Let them feel involved in the government. Let them feel that they are recognized as citizens of this country. They don't need to follow through rigorous processes before they can enjoy the dividend of democracy. These are things that will make young people get encouraged, you know, and involved. Now, encourage political participation and representation. You see, young people have been so discouraged in terms of political participation that they don't even want to have anything to do with politics. It takes the grace of God that few of us are involved in political process because we fall in love with it, because we discover that this is our calling. But we are doing so much work at the background with young people to say we can bring in more young people into the corridors of power. Because we know there are a lot of potentials that young people possess. If you don't bring them in governance process and decision making, you will be losing, you'll be lacking a lot as a government. So it's important that government encourage young people, reduce the cost of involving in governance. If you cannot give them opportunity to be involved in governance process, give them opportunity to come into government through party politics. Make it free for them. Crash and say, okay, from 15 to 24 years, from 15 to 30 years old, I'm giving you free form. Give them opportunity at one level, at SGA level, at the senatorial level, even at state ESCO. Let them bring in their potentials. Invest in the potentials of young people. With this, government will be able to harness the opportunities surrounding young people. Another thing that government need to do is provide partnership and leadership training. Government need to set up various leadership hubs across the 6 geopolitical zone, across the 36 states of the Federation. Set up leadership hubs. We have national orientation agency. The way it's being spread down to the local government level, set up leadership hub like that at the various state, at the various senatorial level. You so that young people, you begin to harness young people and take them out of various social vices and begin to put them into leadership position. These are things that government need to do. The last thing, government need to leverage on the technical survey of young people. Young Nigerians are very intelligent. Leverage on the opportunities. Give them opportunity to be involved in technological decisions.
Indeed. And that's the point I want us to anchor on as we wind down, because the theme for this year's celebration, and I think you've just hit the nail on the head, is from cliques to progress. And yes, a lot of leaders we see today, a lot of them got into politics at very young age. I mean, we had heads of state at just in their 30s. And you wonder, the average Nigerian in their 30s now still trying to get a job and get by, while other people were leading a nation at that age. But let's wind down now. We have just barely minutes to finish. Nana, let me come to you. From cliques to progress. You were part of the group of young people that championed the cause of the Labour Party's presidential candidate on social media. And that was quite a movement. Well, now Questions are, how do you harness all of that for development, for progress in Nigeria? Questions about now the bots that we see online, anything can just trend because someone somewhere is behind that and all of that. How can we translate all of the clicks? Because that's where you find a lot of young people now to progress as we wind down.
Absolutely. Where, social media is here to stay. Social media is a driving force everywhere in the world. Your business. Some people, you don't even need to have a shop. You can have a virtual shop. So the way that we can harness it is, I will say it again. The young man in the studio was talking about being solution driven. One thing I'm going to say is that he has even shown more passion than the president speaking to these matters. Number one thing I'd like to say is that why buy $100 million jet? Why not flip it? And that the 10,000 hectares that you say you want to put into farming, why doesn't that money? It would be good to see the government put aside 21 billion for a building, for building the vice president's residence. Why not put it into, why not put those things, let them take the back burner and let Nigerians see that you are actually cutting down the cost of governance. Those are the things that will now start to trend. Naturally, Nigerians will begin to say, look at what our government is doing. They're working in our favor. These monies, rather than to use it for some form of largesse, they're going to use it, to the betterment of the Nigerian people. Another thing is we should also consider, a curriculum upgrade. I think Mr. Andrew already touched on that. And it should start from the primary schools, primary level, because of the way children naturally just understand tech. And then the schools themselves must be very well equipped. It's not just to have it as a subject, but please, can the schools be equipped with the right teachers? Can the teachers be better paid? In fact, not better paid. And the teachers be very well paid. That way you will actually see that the technology will begin to work even in the favor of people who are there in power. They should be seen, they should not be seen just largesting and saying to everybody, there's a lot that one can say. You have on the one side a senator that just sat down and said, we will sit down eating, you guys go. As if, what does one Nigerian life matter? These are the questions.
We must thank you for your thought. They are quite insightful, and I'm sure that you have a lot more as well as other guests. But that's why it's an ongoing conversation. It's International Youth Day, so that conversation has to continue, because if we don't make the most out of our young people, then we're doomed for the future, which is why we brought this conversation.
Absolutely, and I believe that the conversation should have even started before the youth went on the streets. All
right. Thank you so much, Nana Kazare, entrepreneur and media consultant, former spokesperson of Obita T Presidential Campaign Council, as well as Eunice Atwejide, legal practitioner, 2019 presidential candidate of now defunct National Interest Party, as well as House of Reps candidate of the Labour Party in 2023, as well as Mr. Andrew Abu, chairman of the Progressives Forum, member of the All Progressives Congress, who joined us from Abuja studio. Another Andrew, but this time Andrew Enatomen, the country director, Africa Youth Leadership Movement, Improvement and Crime Prevention Awareness, and a member of the PDP. Gentlemen and ladies, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, that elephant in the room is our conversation. How did Nigeria spend billions of naira to the City of Lights and came back with nothing from the Olympics? That's the conversation. Join us again.
From within the ministry, I believe that I have people that this is not their first Olympics, it's not their second, it's not their third, it's not their fourth. I've had people that in the last 24 years perhaps have been coming for Olympics every 4 years. Beyond the ministry, in terms of the leadership, in terms of the federation, in terms of NOC, in terms of, we have plenty people who have been, even if Nandumelu is president. I'm sure he's attended, countless. And the way I feel is that I don't understand how, because I know how just one Olympics, I know how much it has impacted on me, on my thinking, on my imagination that things shouldn't be this way. Olympics is not what you come and disgrace yourself. So if you want to avoid that disgrace, you must work hard to be able to do well in order not to get out disgraced.
Wale Adigun, sports journalist, joins us this morning as we talk through the Olympics. Wale, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
I thought you were going to say what's good about the morning.
Yeah, but I mean...
We've moved on.
The tone of your voice is so somber.
Come on, Wale. How are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm great. I'm fine. I'm having fun, you know why? Because I was like the proverbial prophet of doom.
Right?
Yeah, predicting we're not going to win a medal. This. Yeah, so I'm not happy about it, but it is what it is.
So let's start from the end. What heads should roll? Or should heads roll? Is it a function of heads that were not put in the right place or that were not working well? So let's start from the end, then we'll walk all the way back. Consequences.
Okay, so I think heads should roll. But the way Nigeria is and the way Nigerian sports is, even if heads roll, nothing changes. Under saner climes, I think that the minister should have fallen on his sword, resigned. I know he just became minister like a year ago, right? But that's no excuse. You resign. You fall on your sword even before you come back from Paris. I think that if our sports federation presidents, maybe the FN, were sensible enough, you fall on your sword because this is unacceptable. It's disgraceful. I know this happened in London 2012, right? And nothing happened. But 12 years later, I mean, this is... Spend 9 billion, right? We're about to spend another 3 for the Paralympics because it's 12 billion in total, and we have nothing to show for it. I think it should roll, and it starts from the top. So if the minister cannot fall under his sword, trust me, nobody else will. So even if the minister is not going to fall under his sword, he should be able to look at a few federations who have fallen short and ask very, 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 big questions. And if you can't answer them, then you should go. It's as simple as that. But we don't do that in Nigeria. And like I said, even if that happens, it will be historical. Because ask me which sport administrator in Nigeria or even politician in Nigeria has fallen under his sword and said, because I didn't do well, I am leaving. It doesn't happen.
It's interesting because in his statement, I had to take time to read his statement.
Yeah.
And he talked about the fact that the president was magnanimous enough to release money. That this underwhelming, those were his words, performance are not acceptable. We owe Nigerians an explanation. Who is the we here? And who should be the we here?
It should be them. That's the truth. I mean, 9 billion naira is not small money. I broke it down while getting ready to come on the air, and we took 88 athletes to the Olympics. And if you break down 9 billion naira, that means that each athlete would have at least spent 102 million naira. That means on each athlete you spent over 100 million naira on them. And I think Jamaica probably spent maybe just a paltry of that. Although it's been deemed as a not too good Olympics by Jamaica, but they got a gold, 3 silver, and 2 bronze medals. So why have we spent that much? And they said to whom much is given, much is expected.
You're even going too far. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, St. Lucia went to the Olympics with 4 persons, 3 men, 1 lady. St. Lucia is just like the size of OPIC in terms of population, less than 200,000. They went with 4 people. They won gold and a silver. Julian Alfred 100 meters and 200 meters. Just half of OPIC. 9
African teams got medals.
What are we missing? I guess that's my question.
Uganda had, I think, a gold and a silver. Botswana also had a gold and silver. Could have been 2. Yep. They missed out on the 4x400. So what we're missing is very simple. We're missing administration. We're also missing the fact that, see, I can blame the administrators, which I've done at the beginning of this program, but we also have to blame the athletes. You have to balance it. We went to this Olympics with elite athletes. We went with Toby Amuson, who's a world record holder, froze on the big stage. We went with Aaron Okodri, world number 19 in table tennis, froze on the big stage.
Who's aging, by the way?
He's aging, I know, he's 38, but Malong is old. Malong is the greatest table tennis player of all time. He still won a gold medal. I know it's Chinese, right? It's a birthright, it's a heritage. But some of our athletes froze on the big stage. I know Favour Philly went through a whole lot with the 100-meter thing, but the 200 meters also she didn't do too well. So some of our athletes also have to answer questions. There's Brume as well. I mean, how do we have 3 finalists in long jump? 3 out of 12. Americans also had 3 out of 12, and they emerged with a gold and a bronze. So in as much as we can blame the sports minister, the administrators, the sports ministry, we also have to look at our athletes and ask them questions. What happened when you were supposed to deliver on the biggest of stages? So it's a mixed bag. The blame has to go around.
And, you know, women at least showed up to a large extent. And this is not a gender war. I'm not doing that. You know, the Tigers, all of the names you've mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay, we can mention Samuel Ogazi, at least, in the 400
Got to
meters.
the final, yeah.
That's one man out of a lot of other athletes. Fine, the women made a larger chunk of the delegation to the Olympics naturally, so you'd expect that they will come through more when it comes to the finals. But this is where I'm going. So I don't know when we started preparing. It is taken for granted that you start preparing for the next Olympics from the last day of the, like yesterday is when you start preparing for the next Olympics. So were you able to track our preparation? I know it's something we've said a lot of times, but were you able to look through preparations and say, okay, this is where we missed it in terms of preparing for this? We prepare for elections well in Nigeria, but I don't know.
We've already started preparing for the next election.
Exactly. I don't know what happened with the Olympics.
There's a general saying in sports that to win an Olympic medal, it takes 8 years, not 4. It takes 8. Trinidad Tobago said his plan was never even to win gold in the 200 meters when he beat Noah Laos. He was planning for a late 2028. And this just came. You know, it's like a bonus to him. It takes 8 years to prepare to win gold medal or win anything on a podium. Anything you get after that is a bonus. But we prepare for 3 months, and the minister will sit down in the hall and assure Nigerians that, see, these athletes, they are going to win gold, they are going to win silver. I think it's balderdash. Yeah, I know you say that for the optics, right? You say that for the PR, but it is not possible. It isn't. They say only a madman does the same thing and is expected. We do the same thing every time. We prepare for the Olympics 3 months. Once we carry this, at least take them to Germany, take some to Spain, take some to Portugal, and you know, the week of the Olympics, they all arrive at the venue, and we think that we were competing in weightlifting. You know, the Chinese are something else. We were competing in boxing. Went to boxing, the event with 2 boxers. I think it was supposed to be 3. One had issues with doping, Cynthia Ogushemilori, you know, and I went with 2. In wrestling, you know, we're out in the first round of majorly almost all of the events, except for Oboro Dudu, who got into the bronze medal. Even Odoaya Adekore also, you know, fumbled on the big stage. So the question is, when do we start taking preparation, even in football, in everything we do in this Nigeria? So, but we take preparation for granted. In football, a club like Aiba probably wants to play in Egypt and starts going to Egypt maybe 2 days before the game or a day before the game. Preparation has to be ingrained in the way we do things, because all of these countries you've seen have taken a lot of time preparing. Take a look at the mixed relay team of the United States. They are beating. They broke the world record in the heats. If I mention the 4 mixed relay, you won't even know any of them. Yes. But because of the way they've prepared, the strength and depth, everything adds up together. But we don't have that.
So perhaps, as I said, I read the minister's statement. So I'm going to be taking them, not really reading them verbatim. So it looks like in terms of diagnosis, what he said is what you've just repeated. He talked about the federation prioritizing qualification over preparation. And he said this has to change. And then he also talked about that he had an assignment, AFCON, I think African Games and the Olympics, and so many things were in quick succession. So he was wondering, more like, shouldn't that make them to be in the A-game zone rather than feeling overwhelmed by some of these events?
Is he even the NFF president? Minister is not the NFF president. He's only there to just, try to support.
The NFF or the Athletics?
I mean, the minister. The minister is not the NFF president. The NFF president should be the one in charge of the AFCON. That's what I'm saying. He's saying that, oh, we had the AFCON. All you have to do was just supply funds, through the government. So that is no excuse. Saying that the federations are concerned with qualifying, of course you have to qualify. If you don't play the lottery, you don't win it. If you don't qualify, you cannot participate in these events. And all of these qualifications was also because most of our athletes didn't qualify initially. They had to go through the last stages of qualification for them to, make it into Paris. So all of this is no excuse. We have countries who came to these Olympics also not better prepared than they still won medals. Let's be very honest with ourselves. So the minister's epistle on X doesn't justify it. I think he's just trying to, not take the responsibility, not take the can for what has happened, saying I came in 1 year ago now. There's a DG, there is a Director General of the Sports Ministry. What is he doing? He doesn't even take enough of the blame here. Although the problem here is that I also heard the DG also came in 4 weeks ago before the Olympics, because you change DG, you change DG. So it's rinse and repeat. Basically,
it's quite ironic that we're having this conversation on International Youth Day. Majority of people who participate in sports are young people, and this is one of the areas you expect that will. If we're investing well in this, it shows that we're investing in our youth. It's just an obvious thing. If we pay attention to sports, it obviously means we're paying attention to our youth, so it leaves much to be desired. But when you look at nations that are doing well, I see that the US rather and China were tied gold medal.
Yeah.
But of course the breaker was bronze and silver. It looked like China's goal was to just get as much gold as possible to maybe get tops. But of course the US got it at the end of the day. But we also saw Nigerian athletes, for example, competing for the US, for the UK, for Germany, for Bahrain.
And we won medals. We won the diaspora medals too. Yeah. Yeah.
Is there anything like that?
Whatever it is.
I'm sorry. We have to talk, because what's the option you have? So are we really a sporting nation? That's the point I want to ask. Because you said, let's be honest with ourselves. Are we a sporting nation at the heart of it? Or we just have bright sparks here and there, but this is not made for us? Maybe we should focus on other things and not spend money on this.
Guys, we are over 200 million in this country.
It doesn't really mean.
Yeah, of course. It's just like saying that because we have a lot of people in the riverine areas means we should be winning gold medals. Right? No, it doesn't work that way. But we are a sporting nation, but we don't love sport. We don't love it with all of our heart.
How does that work?
Investment. Look at China. I mean, China have made table tennis their life, but ping pong started in Japan.
Do we have money to invest in sports?
We have money. 9 billion. Do you know what 9 billion is in dollars? That's a lot of money. How much is the budget for science and technology, the ministry? We have money in this country. If you could allocate 9 billion naira for the Olympics, then that means you've got money, because convert that to dollars, that's a whole lot of money.
$5 million.
But that money, are we spending it well? That is the question. This country is rich. Forget all of the old austerity, whatever. This country is rich. If you can allocate that sum, we are just not expending it really, really well. We are not investing where we should be investing. You mentioned youth. One of the only positive I'll take from these games is that the core of Team Nigeria is a young core. Look at our athletics team. Sam Ogazi, Favor Fili. They're going to come back in the late 2028. I don't know if they're going to come back stronger. I hope they do. But it's a very young core. Look at other sports as well. But we need them to get younger. The Americans had a 16-year-old win a gold medal. I think it's Quincy Wilson or something like that. He's going back to high school in 2 weeks. He tweeted about it. He's starting high school. Do we have people in that mode? No. Before the Olympics, I think 2-3 weeks before, our table tennis team under 16 or so, we're supposed to go to Botswana, Gaborone. But because they said there's no funds, we could not take them to. Those are players that could sow the seeds for the next Aaron Okodri. Last few months ago, we hosted the WTT contender. The prize money was $80,000 in Lagos here, table tennis. But we cannot afford to send under 17 boys to Gaborone. That WTT contender I'm telling you about, the Chinese contingent brought 15-year-olds. Yeah, I was there. They brought 15, 16-year-olds. But trust me, in the next Olympics, these 16-year-olds will be the ones beating our country once again, who will be at that games again. At probably 41 or 42.
Don't you think Aruna should just bow out at this point?
If you're good enough, you can play anywhere. He's still Nigeria's best player. He's world number 19 for a reason.
Yeah.
So he should be there. Che Gutoriala played into his 40s in the Olympics. He played 7 Olympics in table tennis. So why can't I? If Aaron is good enough, then he should. But the truth of the matter is, have we created a system to have players who can better Aaron Okodri? We're not.
He talked about, the minister yet again in his statement talked about after the preparations there were complaints about some selection, and he attempted to question it, but it was resisted. What do you think he meant by that statement in terms of coaches and athletes?
What it means is that he's not in charge. It means that it's just minister by the name. Because if you know these things and you cannot effect change, then of what use?
Wouldn't they be saying he's interfering in sports affairs, which is against?
No, of course that is, but you also need to be able to have put a machinery in charge to ensure that enforce that, to ensure that all of these things don't happen. I mean, there are cases of even athletes who were not fit enough who went to these Olympic Games.
Okay, let's begin to look at it like this. Let's assume we're sitting with the minister or the ministry at the end of the day, and we're doing analytics, a simple analytics. 2012, no medal. 2016, I think 1 medal.
Yeah.
2020, 2 medals.
2, yeah.
2 medals, 1 gold, 1 bronze. All of it, 2 bronze, 1 silver, 2 bronze in 2016 and 2020. And 2024, no medal. So in 4 Olympics, we've had 4 medals. That means 1 Olympic per year by average.
Yeah.
What does that say to a population of 200 million people that are super talented? When you compare that to my classic example, St. Lucia coming to the Olympics with 4 people, 1 woman, she got them 1 gold, 1 silver in one of the prime sports. And I'm sure they spent way less than we did.
What I can speak to that, say to that is, we are discovering talents. Eshe Brome, Presina Ochonogo were discovered from grassroots tournaments. Yeah. We are discovering them, but we are not harnessing them enough. They are 2 different things. I remember this edition of the National Sports Festival a few years ago. We discovered a very young gymnast. She was from, I think, Imo, Anambra State. Where is that girl right now? These are questions we should be asking. We discovered her, but we are not harnessing. And we still have more and more and more of that. We have more of those talents. But the government, first of all, I even think that the government has to even strip its hand off sports, partially. Maybe not fully, because government cannot single-handedly, even in Great Britain, the government is still very much involved. But government has to encourage private Nigeria to come in and invest.
Because when you look at the Olympics that just played out, a lot of the funding was actually gotten from the private sector.
Yes. It came from private sector. So that's what we're getting wrong. We're not involving the private sector enough, because the private sector will be the ones who will be able to invest properly. I mean, at a point in time, we had this policy called Adopt an Athlete.
Yeah, that was during Sunday Darius period.
I know that they were against there, but we didn't sustain it.
I go back to the question I asked about whether or not we're a sporting nation. I just saw a tweet that's all referred to, when people would rather stay around the games village, taking drinks rather than buy tickets to go watch the match. And in reference to the part where you said we're a sporting nation, but we don't love sports. I think you said that. This is what I mean. We focus on the talent, which is good, but we don't pay as much attention to the infrastructure. Every community in Nigeria should have, at least, if you don't have a field, you should have a basketball court. You should have a semblance of a sport. I'm not talking about sand. I'm talking about something that looks like standard.
Yeah.
That every child growing up. I mean, one of the users, Jeffrey, when we were reading the comments, said, well, he's now inspired to get his child to start training so that Nigeria, at least in a few years, will get to win medals. But my question is, where will the child train? So when I ask, are we a sporting nation? Is it ingrained in our DNA? I mean, you have estates that designate an area for sports.
Yeah.
And after a while, you see that they've erected duplexes there. And you see schools that are meant to have at least a semblance of a sporting area. It's just story building. The children can't even run along the hallway because it's too tight. Talk more about a field. So are we really a sporting nation when you think about the infrastructure? It's not ingrained in our DNA.
There's an infrastructure deficit in Nigeria, a massive deficit. If you take Lagos as an example, there's a massive deficit. I'll give you a very small example. We have about 4 stadiums in Lagos, right? Yeah, Agege, we had Onikon, there's Mobolaji, we have Teslim, and we have the National Stadium, which is not a Lagos State government property though. But out of all of these stadiums right now, only one is working perfectly, and that's the Mobolaji Johnson. And that, if he could speak, would be saying that, see, I'm dead, because that's been overused. Agege Stadium has been in comatose or has been closed since COVID, with the promise from the government that, hey, we just want to do some renovations. It has been that way since 2020.
And no game has been played there?
Nothing. All you have there is on weekends, people just
Teslim?
coming. Teslim also has been, not operating, for about a year now.
So that is Lagos. You wonder what's happening in other
Exactly.
states.
So there is a massive, I think it was Germany. Yeah, it was Germany. I think they failed to go to 94, something like the World Cup. And the government declared like a state of emergency and brought their sporting legends, everybody together. Fun fact, Gernot Rohr, our former coach, was part of that whole thing. And they designed the policy that ensured that in about 10 kilometers from every 10 kilometers, there's a sporting facility. They did it for football, everything. They invested it in their sport. And years later, they won the World Cup. Years later, they're world champions. I think they're current world champions in basketball. Look at Tunisia. Tunisia also investing. Tunisia have completed sports. In fact, they're like defending champions almost all of the sports on the continent right now. We are not deliberate in those infrastructures. We are not building enough. Because see, before we can start thinking about winning a gold medal, trust me, our first gold medal, I think, after the ones we've won, our next gold medal is going to come from an athlete that we discovered from here, from the grassroots. You cannot ignore the grassroots. What happened to our Youth Sports Federation of the Youth Fund? What happened to our Ibile Games in Lagos? It is from the grassroots, but like I said, you can even develop them from the grassroots, but do you have this infrastructure to harness them?
Okay, yes. You have the grass that you play on. Okay,
this is where you miss village school. I schooled both the city and the village, and I know that in the village, you have this expanse of land. In fact, when you mess up, it's part of your punishment to cause. When your labor master, that's what they call it then, labor master will say, cut like this, and then you start crying because you know your destination is not in sight. So I guess that's what we're saying. But let's talk about the issue of the Paralympians. They are going, I think, 28th of August. If result is important, I think we should split this funding. Don't you think we should split this funding from the Olympians, from the Paralympians, and give the Paralympians more money?
Because they get results,
They get more results. For us, 2012 that went to the Olympics, abysmal performance, 4 billion we spent in the Olympics in London. We didn't come back with even Earth medal. We have repeated that feat again. And I'm almost confident that these Paralympians will make us, I don't know whether it's a failure of these guys that makes them do well, or they are naturally just good. So shouldn't we review the funding model? Because if we're talking about medals, why can't we give them more money, or at least some?
We've always talked about, we've had this conversation a lot of times, but the government doesn't see it that way. The sports ministry doesn't see it that way. Maybe the numbers game also doesn't help them because we've got with 88 athletes, we've got with different politicians. Politicians also have got with their peers. Everybody has, it's a massive jamboree. So you can understand why 9 billion was allocated to them. And trust me, with the Paralympians, I would like to see if the minister will be doing his daily press conferences that he's been doing in Paris with the Paralympians. Because apparently our sports minister loves the headlines because it's been the only channel of information. Which shouldn't even be. If you have a good process, you have the minister. I was speaking to Dejomoto Imbu, who is a senior colleague of mine, is in Paris, and he said a lot of his colleagues don't even know who their sports minister is.
They should Google it. They should check on Google.
But it speaks to the fact that everything is running smoothly.
I think Choma Ajunwa, our gold medalist at 1996 long jump. She was even saying yesterday, I think on the stage, on one of our programs here yesterday, I saw on the internet, where she said some ministry staff, some don't even know who she is.
Yeah, of course.
They should Google it. Final question, Wale.
She goes there, they don't know her.
And this is a departure from a conversation, but it's still related.
Okay.
For the Super Eagles, Harvey Reynard, who are you priming for the next Super Eagles coach? Oh, you're not even impressed again.
Maybe I should Google that too. But I'm hearing from the NFF that this week a new coach is going to emerge. But is Harvey Reynard in the mix? I don't know.
Can we afford Harvey Reynard?
We can't. We are still owing, what's his name?
Posero Raw.
Pesero, and we're still owing them. So you can't have, the guy comes pricey. He's a very pricey guy. Okay. So maybe if they can get some private sponsors, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. Probably now would be nice to have.
It'll be nice to have. And it's been nice having you. Oh. Well, Edigun, sports journalist, thank you so much for your time. I'm glad we're talking about this. Hopefully, things will change, but thank you.
Things won't change. We'll be here in 2027, 2028, and we'll be having this conversation by the grace of God. Yeah,
well, hopefully things will change.
The only thing you leave a man with is hope. You know, so.
Particularly when he's renewed hope. Well, let's take feedback, Jeffrey.
All right, so let's take a few thoughts from you. But Wale Moss, thank you so much for coming on the program. As always, we'll reach out to you. But be optimistic. Let's have hope. That's the only thing we have. Hope. Let's keep it alive. Thank you, Wale. All right, so let's bring you some of the thoughts you've been sharing on WhatsApp. Let's start with Chief Alexander from Alausa on Pro Olympics Games outing. You said Nigeria's getting medals for other countries shows that we have the talent, but we fail to develop them in the country. Hence, countries do the needful and get results with our human resources. Sad enough, we know this, but don't learn from our mistakes.
And Tunde Omo from Ekpe has this to say: the Paris Olympics, Tunde Omo from Ekpe, pardon me, the Paris Olympics has come and gone. Unfortunately, no single medal was won by Team Nigeria, which has happened in the consecutive Olympics. The implications is that we are doing the same things and expecting different results. And those are the comments from Tunde from Ekpe.
All right, away from sports, we also have an update from the city of Port Harcourt, where we understand that an explosive device appears to have detonated at the Secretariat of the Action People's Party in Port Harcourt, the Rivers State capital. You can see the visuals there. The explosion, which reportedly occurred at midnight, shattered the glass on the window near the impacted area. The Rivers State Police Command has deployed 2 security vehicles and personnel to the scene. Routine activities are also going on smoothly within the area.
Well, there you have it. We'll bring you more updates as soon as we have it from that development story. But we have to anchor at this point, but not to worry. There's so much more for you coming up next on Sunrise Daily. I'm Kayode Okikiola.
And I'm Jeff Rose. I'm going to have a good day.